Alright, hello and welcome back to the Greatest Attorney Chronicles. Tonight we're going to be continuing the case where we left off, and hopefully the connection will play a bit better this time. This felt like an odd place for the game to put a part 1 and 2, really, though. I mean, we didn't go for a brief recess or anything, we're just immediately at the questioning the jury. I've considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury. I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with their second summation examination of the trial. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman. We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and precisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty. Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. The accused left evidence behind the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. There's some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed I might reconsider. Well, even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to the crime if the window was closed, now can it? Dear me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I just want this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student was unable to find fault with the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. Moreover, no one else was even at the scene to have committed the crime. What if the eyewitnesses are correct? It would seem as though the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it could be argued any other way. That means I'm afraid that during this summation examination, it is absolutely essential you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how would even constitute tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious who stabbed the woman and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and method by which the attack was conducted. And here I was thinking this might be hard. Mr. Narahodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Interesting that the prosecutor actually helped us out there. This is quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel. Oh, yes, my lord. Alright, Ryanosuke, focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to this summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say, Mrs. Garrett Ebb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garrett Ebb's house even on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the 2. That's what we have to find, using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garrett Ebb and how she reacts, even to the things that other people say. The defense's rebuttal. The accused left behind evidence, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. Hold it! I might as well press everyone and everything. Oh, but as we know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does that make, really? There's every possibility the 4th book. The fact that it belongs to the landlord. Yes, that's the part I do have a problem with. I'm sorry. Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. Oh, that's not exactly how I put it. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when this happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves this Japanese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver is about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I have nothing witty left to say. If there was some novel explanation why the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Hold it! Alright, so you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such a light on your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, rational woman. That's great. One reads the morning papers. It's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? That's why I read them in the first place. See? Modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking. Wouldn't you say? And not at all an extreme way to handle it. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated. Interesting, she actually calls him Japanese by the correct term rather than the other one, which the others seem to use condescendingly, which is actually rather interesting. As I see, an overwhelmingly suspicious man has been implicated by the overwhelmingly strong testimony. Despite one or two mild puzzlements, I do declare them overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. So I don't be too happy to consider the exciting new theory if you come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you omitted rational there. Even though the woman's throwing books can't be related to the crime, the window was closed, right? What about the possibility the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? Yeah, we clearly have to establish they had to open it because the room was filling with smoke. But we have to do that before we can start moving on to the next piece. Prosecutor Phil said earlier, isn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? Oh, but you couldn't categorically state the window wasn't open, could you? Yeah, it just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. And what's the point of having windows? Oh, counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Dear me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening if it was even him. Look, I want to get this over with. Don't... Hold it! Hold it. You just want to get this over with. How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future's at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said... A what? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? But I'll bring home some reddies with me tonight. You'll find me floating face down at Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. Mom Mrs. ain't one of us about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, do you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. I'm sorry. It was too frightening, that thing. That's a thing, I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Mrs. Otto. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. I would think we had a fire at home a while ago. And it sneezes. Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defense culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you please tell us more about that fire? Last winter, my grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. Oh, to put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not, it's an angel cake. To celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Well, they must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught fire and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And, by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold, but how'd you catch a cold from a fire? Oh, what a fiasco it was, the Grunge. Who bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like a devil dancing on green. I caught a terrible cold from it. Put me in the hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. I was thinking about this old man's stories playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yeah, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between the assertions, just a connection that might do the trick. Let's see what I can do. If it stands out, I'll go for a strike. Hold it! Oh, hold it. I thought I had to do her last, but it looks like... Alright, but the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, you know. There's no such thing as a loving incendiary ball. No, I brought it on myself. It's playing fire with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding. Oh, never mind that. The point is we were having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't carry any more of these suggestions. Was it anything to do with the crime? Right, well, we'll see about that. What about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at his onslaughts. It's almost as if he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. Oh, that must mean his wife being so... Alright, I think what they need to... I need to... Winter house fires. You have to open windows to clear the smoke. These should do it. Objection. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it's an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrett Ebb household. Mr. Garrett Ebb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke.
Oh my!
Oh my hat!
Excuse me!
Oh, excuse me. Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garrett Ebb. Oh, dearie me, what's the meaning of this? How dare you imply I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative you confirm something for the court, so please, it is time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What, I beg your pardon, what are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, all right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which it can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish the window was open. You simply must have added that to her formal statement. Now that you mention it, yes, the window was open. I'd clean forgotten, but it was true. The window could have been open with a woman throwing books. It's definitely a possibility. Alright, we have to press this since it's new. Alright, the 4th book found of this crime has very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrett Ebb told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband a copy of The Lion's Pride he'd been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. Now that you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. And why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you lay your hands on. As you will know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. Right. Totally understandable. Oh, I need to press her again. I accidentally continued. I mean, you can't waste time deciding what to use next, can you? He's got something to say.
Excuse me!
Excuse me? What is it, juror number 5? Oh, right, because his wife is similar. You know something. I've remembered what it was. That memory I'd blocked out. Ah. I was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Hey, who are you calling granny, you cheeky little devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett Ebb with a maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being it all the time. Well, it could just be because he's that experienced as a day laborer that he has the muscle for it. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I'd just come back after work, like. Put my hands in the pockets for the wages I had just earned that day. I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. Oh, you haven't heard the half of it, boy. What? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whirling past my ear, stuck to the wall next to me. It did, and about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, know that awful stench of the Thamies. I was sure I was going to end up face down in muddy banks that night, I tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. No women lose their rag, they'll throw everything at you, knives, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think all women are short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people as well. It's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor. Use a bow or the like. Wait, what? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. The kitchen knife. Eventually, the window was open and I clearly forgot. There's some novel alternative I might reconsider.
Objection!
Ah, I think I got it. It could, if she had thrown a knife, it's possible the knife might have accidentally been thrown among the other possessions. These two statements have a deeply significant connection. Oh, good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think that perhaps this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? The alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated from Mr. Garrett Ebb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrett Ebb household to the street below. What's that now? After all, Mrs. Garrett Ebb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that, ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you stern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What was it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain, at the very least, this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object found its way from the household to the scene of the crime was the knife.
Take that!
Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrett Ebb. What? What now? I must apologize in advance for this, but I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Good lord, counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged in the victim's back. My lord, remember when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett Ebb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrett Ebb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who had been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Oh, even Mom Mrs. hasn't got aim like that. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand, but that's the point. It's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Mrs. Garrett Ebb, answer please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, Thud. Yeah, even she realizes she might have accidentally caused it if she had thrown it without... my lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman! I'll have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it mine. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. We did it! Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial shall continue. Yeah, I'm sorry for repeating my theory about Von Zykes' motivations last time, but I'm still swapping out which one seems to be the case, given how much he's working with us, and yet against us here. Alright, now then, Lord Van Zykes, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? It's weird that he said that he wanted to be nice to allow us to do our summation examination before, yet in the first trial in London, he said that the prosecution isn't allowed to interfere with the summation examination, so I'm not sure which it is. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Farce, a fake. A farce, meaning a fake. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows so repugnant's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke which I barely know how to respond. Let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourselves better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It shall be more than apparent. Between the crime scene and the Garrett Ebb household runs a rather wide street, the Brighter Road. Which means the distance from the Garrett Ebb's household and the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? That's a little further than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightfully noted as having portentous significance, the 4th book found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book wantonly hurled by the lady of the house traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed fingers and thumb. Was that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? Ah. And did the jackknife follow near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is a somewhat stretching notion of having a bad day for the victim, I would think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice, Mrs. Otto. Serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense, yes? Go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. As such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Miss John Garrett Ebb, must be called to testify and submit a cross-examination. Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror! Order! Well, this is highly irregular. This is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. And unnecessary. But Van Zykes, there are already witnesses in the stand who testify the defense may further cross-examine. And I could probably do Von Zykes' proper voice, but I like giving the vampire one. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth to it, then both the burning book and jackknife must have been flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Roy Beat reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing till now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of the villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they're so heroic, those London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request, and order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. They could also alternatively get Mr. Garrett Ebb to testify. This case has nothing to do with Mr. Garrett Ebb. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help. My trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange report on that front, sir. This is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Sorry about that. I must have been drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but, what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in the room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But it's a top-hinged casement window, meaning it swings along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. So it prevents it from opening? This is news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down the pavement below. Now, you see the problem then. Good, your education in windows is complete. There's never any possibility of either the book or knife traveling 15 yards over them. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be... See that, Rolly? That young Japanese man collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw he crumbled for me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started with the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. Alright, my lord. Oh, good. Another desperate situation. As I mentioned at the start, this is a very circumstantial case, but what I should have mentioned is just because it's circumstantial doesn't mean it doesn't have enough evidence. It's a bit easier for me, but you can have a strong circumstantial case and still have reasonable doubt, have no more reasonable doubt. It just means that the circumstances, the implications of the defendant doing it are too strong to deny, even if there's no hard evidence. The case has nothing to do with Mr. Garrett. Believe me, London Bobby's good for his word.
Hold it!
Now let's press him on this, yes. How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It is the noble founding principles of the force written on as a reminder that all his policemen are sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. Patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. That's what the job's all about. And this is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife. Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes, admittedly. Sir. Oh, Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain this case has nothing to do with Mr. Garrett? Ah, I see, sir. I should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, could you please answer the question, then? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer the fullest of my ability, sir. There's a surprising reason why domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, just one thing. Yes. I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and us upholding our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So that ends, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your persuasion. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll, try. Okay, this is obviously important evidence. Let's take a closer look at this while we're here. Item 1. A policeman have to strive for peace within his allotted beat. A patrolling officers expect to walk 20 miles further into community relations. Any crimes that fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. When a crime is discovered, a policeman must assist with the initial and help detectives. I'm definitely going to need this eventually, just not right now, it looks like.
Hold it!
Alright, by which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore, anything thrown out the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark on the map. Here's the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime on the other side of the wide road. It would have been so hard for somebody to mention this top hit engagement thing before. Alright, well then I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know that? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. Meredith's Garrett Ebb's house are furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me!
Oh, excuse me. Do you have something to add, Miss Beat? Sorry. You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering that, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean by that? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked, but don't misunderstand me, please. We were just so lucky they happened to be on Rolly's beat, so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that Street Briar Road, that's the boundary between Rolly's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Alright, Constable Beat. Oh, you know what? I bet they changed what side of the street it was on to force someone else to do it so they could go home. Yeah, any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered, and when a crime is discovered in his beat, a policeman must assist with the investigations and help detectives. They said they were supposed to do something together, so they knew that if it was discovered on his beat, he would have had to investigate there, so they moved it to the other side of the street. That's the reason I was helping with interviewing the occupants of the Garrett Ebb household yesterday. The house was on my beat, you see. So, that really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garrett Ebb household's on your beat, does that mean the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garrett Ebb's house? Yes, ma'am. Pavement on the side of the road is part of my beat. I see, I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of the Briar Road, we'd have never been able to go for that meal and celebrate our wedding ever. Yeah, precisely. They must have moved it to force the other Bobby to have to deal with it, so they wouldn't have to. Well, that's life of Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the way of rewarding my Rolly for all of his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Nadahodo. I'll take care of it immediately. Constable. Now it's my turn, I think. But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky, looking for a lucky star. I'm sorry. The star that'll guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to the answer to the question? Alright, let's take a moment here, now that we've seen this updated. Briar Road East Side. Alright, so now we have to prove that this couple moved the body so that they could count it as being on the other Bobby's beat so that they could have their anniversary. If a flaming book cuts across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Early being an inspector, I would have said 3 times at least. Of course, with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. I'm sure the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they're telling the truth. Then we saw the poor one fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her. I did leave Tina to go and get help, but that's what Trusty was really to make sure nothing was disturbed.
Hold it!
Yeah, you said you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Feel bad, my love. You can't be expecting to know the location of every police box in every beat. So Rolly told me the way, only, I sort of got a little lost on the way. You're sure, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, please. So, I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. Like I said, my Rolly was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but the true Bobby's never really off duty, sir. Didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment. Nothing strange to report on that front.
Hold it!
Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes open the entire time. Never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. I can swear on the yard's honor, sir. Really, that, seems a little strange. I beg your pardon, sir, strange? Seems really good for me. This burnt copy of London's Prize was really in the Garrett Ebb household, though. So the question remains, how did it find its way to the hands of the victim? Can you at least shed any light on that, since you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Ah, could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about the statement that's not sitting right with me. 2 mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Loyser? Oh, I'm giving her too much of a southern accent, not enough of a British one. Oh, yes, of course, what is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I mean, what's she doing? Oh. Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beach, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. A Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you go or something like that, but my Rolly won't. Duly noted, Miss Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say? I know what I saw. My eyes never let me down. My sense of direction's a little off sometimes, though. Miss B, nobody's questioning you what you've told us. I saw it, I did. That evening, I saw it clearly. That Lily's man with the whiskers and funny curved back slinking away from the scene. Huh. I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. Alright, you also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction? What do you mean by that exactly? Oh, yes, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so close.
Excuse me!
Oh, excuse me. Constable Beat, is there a problem? No, sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remark right now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering the same thing happened that evening is all. Oh, you mean Miss Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, see, I sent her off to find a police box the next beat over from mine, but she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone for a good 15. Oh, really? You're such a well, you're such a tease. The reason I was so long was because the bouquet. Banquet, silly. Banquet? I'm sorry, what banquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding. Really so romantic. He saved up for with the farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while we're doing his rounds. Oh, yes, how romantic. I forgot all about it till now. Had you, my darling? Ah. Oh, yeah. But that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise... Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable B looked very obviously troubled during the exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mr. Beat about the banquet. Miss Beat, the banquet bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add the details of it to your testimony, please. Really, yes, I'd love to. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while.
Hold it!
And, you mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yeah, that's right, I was upset. When we ran over and saw it was the woman with the knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the street lights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice it at first. Oh my. Let's check these, crime scene photos out here. Oh, and then you went to the police box to report to the policeman whose beat it was on. Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again. The funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Miss Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me to the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right, silly me. I'd gone over the wrong side of the street. He'd moved it. And he used her sense of direction so she wouldn't notice it. That way they could be together for the night. Although I'm gonna blame the bouquet this time, I can't think of how it got there. I can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of the Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? The worst part is I forgot to pick up the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose really brought me with that change. In the gutter he'd been spent so long. By the bouquet, do you perhaps mean this solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change you found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zykes, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garrett Ebb household. Exactly, he told her it was in the wrong, so that he could have time to move the body. Although it was not noticed till morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Can I have it back now? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. We have precisely what we need. This is proof. But it's a symbol of our love. It's also a symbol that your husband tampered with a crime scene, I'm afraid. An English rose. It's such a beautiful flower. Ah, this is a rose, is it? I've never seen one before. Did you not take an interest in flowers, Mr. Naruhodo? I wouldn't say that exactly, but I do know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3. Yes, plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out, learning something that aren't fruit tree based, for example. It's a very stylish paper the flower's wrapped in, isn't it? It's just an old newspaper, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, I suppose because I'm not used to seeing English print. It looks so exciting to me. Ah, I see. Is something wrong? Oh, no, I was just thinking that if you wrapped a stone-baked sweet potato in English newspaper, it might look like some sort of fancy cake. Ah, Suzato, you do love your cakes. I want it back after the trial, you hear me? I want it back. Oh, good grief. Rest assured, I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Beat. Didn't take my eye off the crime scene, nothing strange or more on that front. We obviously need to use this to present it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you make of all this? Yeah, the whole idea of an invisible attacker has been troubling me all along, but I think I'm starting to get a picture of what really happened here now. The 4th book that had no business being at the crime scene made me sure that Mrs. Garrett was hiding something from us, but it's becoming increasingly clear that someone else has been hiding something from us as well. I think I may already be armed with everything I need to make a decisive blow here. This time, it's going to expose the whole truth about this mysterious affair. I guess I could take a risky play here and present the rose.
Objection!
But I think this is it. You claim, Constable Beach, that there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene, but that cannot be. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court. When you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policemen assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped after the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection!
Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single starry bloom could be so described, no doubt it was blown by the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belongs.
Objection!
But if that was the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to that fact? No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Rowley didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garrett Ebb's book. Mr. Garrett Ebb's copy of the London's Pride was thrown out the window by his wife. Would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street, but in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garrett Ebb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? When you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rolly's done something wrong. Now, don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says, whittling on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garrett Ebb's come around to the same conclusion I have. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrett Ebb, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason. Tampering, you've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there's someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony point to this one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime? Rolly beat. Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rolly beat, it was you. What? A policeman? Marvelous Scotland Yard? Nonsense, why would my Rolly do something like that? There's nothing straighter than my husband. No, Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. B, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty, and the 15 minutes you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up, it's nonsense, it's lies. What about the Japanese man with whiskers? I bet it was him. If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Ah, well...
Objection!
First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim these crime scene was tampered with, but there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime, to hide something. Yeah, that's right, he's right. My husband and I just happened to be here, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide, huh? It doesn't make any sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering, and until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key for this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. You're mistaken. I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With a stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. The constable motive for tampering the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell. Because, what I said before. Alright, where the victim fell to the ground. That's what this Bobby had to cover up, at all costs. Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We happened, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody has been led to believe, but in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, counsel. If that's your assertion, the court is dying to know, my friend. Where are you proposing the crime actually took place that evening?
Take that!
But that's, the opposite side of the road. I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Garrett Ebb's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Miss Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard, but these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was typical London fog on the ground. And what you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, it's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved everything shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, on the pavement at the east side of the Briar Road. Extraordinary. The constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Zyke said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet. And it was found in its original position, on the pavement on the west side of the Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Rolly Beat? Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Rolly, it isn't true, is it? What the lawyer says all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream. A terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out. Everything exposed. Only it seems... it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly. Order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Rolly, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of the Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this, for damaging the Yard's reputation, for everything. Well, we have evidence here, I can assure you there. I have a possible explanation for why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. And yet, Lord Van Zyke, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you'd better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's unremarkable actions?
Take that!
It's this piece of evidence here, you see? Oh, I selected the wrong one. Oh, I'm sorry to say that I don't, counsel.
Objection!
What I would like to know, my learned friend, is the motive for your unthinkable actions. By which I mean the abysmal response. Maybe I was, too unthinking. England, Japan, it makes no difference. Where you come from, human emotions are the same. That's what I was thinking, yes. And I think you have a fairly good idea of the feelings of Constable Beetle's actions, don't you? You seem to have a good idea of my own thoughts and feelings. I'm still getting an idea. Well, I heard you muttering to yourself before, you see. Now then, I think you better show correct evidence at once.
Take that!
Yeah, it's this one. I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I have only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is new to me. I've learned that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens of this beat is all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet. Lord. Oh yes, it was very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal, when he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of them, it must have gone through the man's mind. Besides, just on that particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with a lot with being married to a Bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with the initial investigation and help the detectives. Ah. Constable Beat. Is that or is not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's alright. So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Dang. Oh, good gracious. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? It was the first time since I became a copper that it ever cursed. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. Gotta report the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with the initial investigations and help the detectives. Why here? Why does this have to happen here? And why tonight of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then I opened my mouth to speak. It just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat. So I'll have to go to the police box that covers it. To turn right along Mearsham Street and then... Oh, because she had no sense of direction, she didn't realize. So it was all a freak accident. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted, just that one night, take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening celebration would be ruined. And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside of your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under a neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought... Well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? Of course he did, otherwise my Rolly would never have left the poor woman in the freezing cold pavement. I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I never should have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm just sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us, Constable, How many books did you move from one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was. Yes, definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th from the open one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garrett Ebb household. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? And all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, that's because that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? When we first ran over the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. Okay, so she saw the book fall to the ground, she leaned down to pick it up, and the knife had fallen onto her back when she did that. Alright, you sure that it was this book, The Lion's Pride, the victim was holding? Oh yes, no doubt about it, sir. Interesting. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. The only 2 people at the scene. Pat and me both saw it happen. However which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. How about it? My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zykes? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir. What will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was my fault. It's all because I'm always moaning about him to come home late. Coming home late? Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Alright then, my love. Oh, one last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson to your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say... Leave now. This trial is not yet over. Sir. Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are still some immutable facts here, principally... that the accused, Mr. Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed the crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible with the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of that possibility already. Lord Van Zykes, is this true? Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. Name the other person who could have perpetrated the crime.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to fully reveal the truth about this case, it is imperative we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Jean Garrett Ebb.
Objection!
That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garrett Ebb, answer me this. Well, what do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garrett Ebb. And in the course of that argument, a minor house fire was ignited. And to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what a... You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open, top-hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garrett Ebb. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, is it yours? Have you really never laid eyes on before? Ah, I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there is all that regalia said the members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No, I have no recollection of saying that at all. Juror number 4. Oh? Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You're not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. That's just a common old garden knife. It could come from anywhere. We have several like it at home if one went missing. How would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying? Please, Mrs. Garrett Ebb. Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So yes, I want evidence. I want to see the hard evidence. I insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife, if that's what you think. The tip. Come along now, chop chop, do your worst. Oh well. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. Oh? The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zykes. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4. I'm sure you'll appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garrett Ebb, and mark my words in this court of law today. We shall extract the truth from you. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey. I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is John Garrett Ebb, and I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. Well, she juggles many hats, as we've seen. The court has decided that your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Oh, yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that happened in your household in the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dearie me. Jenna Pajoni, nothing to worry about now. Oh, I didn't know you were here, Jean. John. Oh, John and Jean, I get it. It wasn't only you in that room, my dear old thing, was it? Rather, I think I have to testify as well, don't you? Oh, what about your knee, dear? Oh, don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade face disciplinary action alone. Oh, Jean. I presume you are Mr. Jean Garrett Ebb. Yes, sir. Former Second Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Earth and Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action, now living quiet life, as it were. The quiet life. Were you not engaging in incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Ah, well, yes, quite. I believe this may represent the first in a proud history of British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, jury number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events of your home on the day of the incident in question. Sir, at once. The Battle of Garrett Ebb. Just the day we're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over, set fire to the carpet. Soon had out though, and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd noticed if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing was in the victim's back, really it was one of ours. You'll have a job proving it, I think. Sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. I had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this knife. In combat, one's focused narrows, such the surroundings are barely noticed. Though these witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they've testified already, this may be a dead end. Von Zykes may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. This is the final one of the case. The Battle of Garrett Ebb. Yes, and dear friend, your wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now.
Hold it!
The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garrett Ebb. A rather passionate note, in fact, but Mrs. Garrett Ebb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret. And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, when a chap says he can't recall things, it's common decently not to drag it all up. And besides, half of that was wide of the mark of anyway. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after the multiple blows to the face? Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the...
Hold it!
Alright, and the fire also spread some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. It just so happens there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed it about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Have to draw water from public water pumps during the day if you need any, you see. And lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although that little mustached Japanese man buys water in baubles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of this man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Many knives around our place, can't say I'd noticed 1 or 2 went missing. I might as well just press everything just to see the results.
Hold it!
Even though the room was on fire? You were throwing those even though the room was on fire? As far as I was concerned at the time, it was no more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When one wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Sutter takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? Alright, so please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was there a knife among the items you through with their husband that day? In all honesty, I genuinely do not recall, but I must point out that I'm no monster. Let's see, some bread, a cabbage, a garlic, a towel, a sponge.
By Jupiter! Excuse me!
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garrett Ebb. Don't shoot. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark now just now bring something to your mind? Nothing of significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somehow more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with every ball. Yeah! Good grief, woman. We're not at home now. There's a court of law. Oh, dear me. I'm so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this then. How do you suppose that happened? Your pipe, sir? Had this thing in my hand at the usual time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean off with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something properly solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now. You're going to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what we should make of this account. It could be important. The defense believes Mr. Garrett Ebb's remark just now could be of good significance. This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? Well, in that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. Alright, very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Miss Nadahodo. Oh no, this is precisely what we wanted here. Apparently fell to the floor. Oh, what's this? Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yeah, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. A nick. There's a small nick out of the bowl here. Look, it appears to have been made relatively recently, too. You can see where there's little scrapes and dents. It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Yeah, you're right. It seems to me recently that being well-loved goes hands in hand with getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye, though, because it's clearly new. Looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? For some reason, it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garrett Ebb's dressing gown. I suppose it must have been considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garrett Ebb, given he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that or he can't afford to replace it. This is a tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garrett Ebb's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. Tip of a blade. Is something wrong, Mr. Nadahodo? I don't really know. There's just something niggling at me. But I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Perhaps that's the case. It would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, thanks to Salado-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garrett Ebb. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter, can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Plenty knives, can't say I'd notice if one went missing, I'm afraid. That bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours. You'd have a job proving it, I think. I might as well hold it one more time. So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof? even though there's no other credible possibility in this.
Objection!
You forget, my friend, that it is yet to be established the accused was not responsible for the attack. As if I ever could forget. Only there was some way to know who had handled the knife. I suppose wizardry like that's just a dream. Hello, Kyo. Looks like you're just in time. We're about to break this case wide open. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruto. Oh, you mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter of the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. This guy, the Pegasus Edgeworth this game? Yeah, Lord Von Zykes is the main... actually, I can open this here to show it. He's in here, isn't he? Yeah, Baron Von Zykes, a prosecutor known as the Reaper of Bailey. Yeah, though concrete details of the matter are not forthcoming. He doesn't have a flawless record like Edgeworth does, but he has kind of a gimmick where whoever he prosecutes can never escape justice, supposedly. And we experienced a hard time, because while last time we were successfully able to defend our client... His outfit looks nice, though. Yeah, it does. I'm trying to give him a bit more of a vampire-sounding voice, because he has a cape as well, though he always dramatically throws it off during a case. Military outfits are fun to draw. I imagine they would be, yeah. Hopefully the artist for this game had some fun with it. But yeah, basically whoever he prosecutes ends up dead afterward, and indeed, while we did prove our last client not guilty, he still died afterward. But luckily this case is technically not a murder, this is an assault case, so hopefully that won't happen here, because the defendant here, yeah, he has a cape that he throws off like Sigma from Mega Man X. I know the concept predates that by a long time, but I wanted to make that comparison in particular for no particular reason than it was fun. This knife was found in the victim's back was if only I could transplant this whole incident to several years in the future. Alright, so that's the extent of their testimony, is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I think we've heard all this before, to be honest. I can't say I'm particularly confident we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony. But this cross-examination, it's absolutely essential. We establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident. Yeah, I know. If we can prove that it was one of the items Miss Garrett threw, then we can at least prove our client didn't do it. I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried that, in fact, a knife belonging to one of them caused the victim's injury. If we could find even a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it would clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything. Yes, it would. So for Soseki-san's sake, we must. We must find that last crucial piece of evidence. Yes, today referring to wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over, set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though, and we got the window open. Meanwhile, I started picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. I did knives around the place, can't say I noticed one to it missing. But the bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours to have a job proving it, I think. I think we can, however, now that we have this final piece of evidence. Mr. Garrett Ebb, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. Oh, you can't? Used to call me Dead-Eye Deb back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must be very dizzy. Oh, what is that exactly? A tiny scrap of metal. Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to just be a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where the defense come by this evidence? Oh yeah, it was also noted in the last case that usually Von Zykes only prosecutes capital crimes, and that he took a long vacation shortly after he got his title of the Reaper of Bailey. So it seems many are surprised that he came back, and it's a big surprise that he's doing this, because this is technically an assault case. The police even admitted, if we lose here, our client won't be hanged or anything, he'll just get a few years of prison. Because the victim is still alive, even though they were very heavily injured, they were able to save the person. So I guess we're going to find out the hard way whether or not the Reaper of Bailey's curse works. And they did already bring up, well, what if Von Zykes is murdering them, but they confirmed it can't possibly be him because the circumstances of the deaths after each case are completely different. There's no way he could possibly have control over them like that. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the truth behind this case, my lord. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well, then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, when paired with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth of this entire case? The assault weapon.
Take that!
I keep trying to call it a murder weapon, but I have to remember the victim's still alive. They're just in the hospital, so unfortunately we can't get any statements from them. This is the knife that was found on the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece of the tip of the blade that is missing. Common issue with inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals use them regularly, leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim. Yeah, I had to call it. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to call it, so I just called it. Yeah, I was about to call it a murder weapon, but then I remembered, wait, no, this is an assault case since the victim's still alive, so I can't technically call it a murder weapon. So I just came with the first thing that came to mind. But I guess assault weapon, a knife is not technically an assault weapon, now is it? Alright, the tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garrett Ebb's pipe. Ah! Good grief, Lord Van Zykes! I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Ordar! Ordar! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. He took the hit. Yeah, I like the over-the-top breakdowns characters in this series have when you finally break through their statements. It's a miracle. A miracle? So Von Zykes has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garrett Ebb's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. I had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. Never been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between the two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garrett Ebb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garrett Ebb, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Oh, goodness. Yes, and that tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garrett Ebb's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1. And yet, there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garrett Ebb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back, on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear. No. Oh, right, because his chair was on fire, I forgot that would mean his robe would have been burned as well. A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged, create almost a passable vintage. Now, allow me to toast to my learned friend's characteristic approach to bottling his argument. I'm sorry, but after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see, he keeps doing that, and I'm not sure why. Is spoiled by an insurmountable consistency. An insurmountable? What? Lord Van Zykes, explain yourself. What is the inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Oh, yeah, he's gonna point out that it should go in her head or something if it was from attacking her from above, but we know why. In fact, let me show it to you right now. We know for a fact the victim had a book that was from the apartment there, and this was thrown and went out the window. The Bobby confirmed that, police officer confirmed that this was in her hand at the scene of the crime, which means she bent down to pick it up because she saw it fall out of nowhere, and that's when the knife fell on her. That's right, silly man. Now, Jean, old thing, why are you getting all excited about? Let's consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. A knife that had struck her had fallen from above. There's no possible way it could have planted itself in the victim's back. Ah. Yeah, if she was standing upright, it would be her head or shoulders that was hit, but we have a reason she'd be knelt down. Quite right, that's exactly right. Quite right, see, that's exactly right. Then, if the knife had fallen from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, oh man, he's lost for words, look. I knew it, I never looked at his theory in the first place. I don't know, though, what really did happen. There goes the glass, indeed. Yeah, he does that a lot. His gimmick here is he crushes it with his hands or throws it at the candlestick behind himself whenever he makes a break point. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. Man, we were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way's been blocked completely by just a simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency, and the theory will stand. Miss Susato. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all. And your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. A key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information we need is there. Seems you have nothing to say, my friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed.
Objection!
This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes. If the knife fell from the victim from above, there's no way it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There's a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. It can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Oh, goodness. After her madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present evidence of which you speak. Present the evidence of which you speak. Well, this is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is...
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene, is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garrett Ebb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. In this photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim is holding it in her hand. Oh, there was no... Oh, but as we all know, it was police constable who put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however, as part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement at that point. Oh, but, what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up on her own volition, and clearly this must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Ah, well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have the book in her hand? Hey, Jingo, I think I'm starting to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me. We all know the book fell from the top floor of the Garrett Ebb household on the pavement below, at precisely the moment of that victim was walking the past. Yes, at that exact moment, the young woman was walking across the street in light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw. Yes, Mrs. Garrett Ebb, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed right in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it. But I suppose, she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens! And when that woman reached down to pick up the fallen book, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at that same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Sasuke Natsume. Well, I never! Then it appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. Ah. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, there was not. This is nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Poor woman's spine. Yeah, that's why she's in the hospital right now, and she's been in there the whole time, so unfortunately she couldn't explain in anything. And now we see... yeah. Luckily, we were still able to find enough evidence for her to explain her story, because she easily would have said she was along the... which side of the road she was on, and... crap, drawing blank. How do I word it? No, I needed to make that more exaggerated, so that... I need to... yeah. Yeah, but she would have explained that she saw a book fall out of nowhere that she leaned down to pick up. She would have said which side of the road she was on. Luckily, we were still able to find all this to tell her story without her being here. The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Or Mrs. Garrett Ebb. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book, and I threw that knife as well. John, dear. Oh, it's all right, I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry. Oh, I can't lift her properly. Slam. Lord Van Zykes, what news of Mrs. Garrett Ebb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events have left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could have easily been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful. This woman's out of danger, it seems. Yeah, that's the good news. So, Mr. Sosuke Natsume. Yes? On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British literature. Yeah, he's also a Japanese exchange student, like we are. Only he's already been here about a year studying English literature. And we are repaid with immeasurable kindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it's me who should be begging your pardon. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman was just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure the woman was dead. Yeah, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Poor Soseki-san. His imagination really has gotten the better of him. Yes, poor man. They did establish he was a bit superstitious before, so when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our empires, and for that, I'm truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befouled by the spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zykes and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken, and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Alright, so we do know Lord Von Zykes does at least care about the truth. That's why a while ago I wondered if maybe he was doing a lesser charge in this time to see if his curse was there. My second theory was that he might have done this specifically to test us because he knows whatever case he prosecutes automatically causes no British lawyer to accept the case out of fear of what happens to the client. Not only that, but this man's Japanese, so he figured that the Japanese defense lawyer would of course jump to his aid. So yeah, my theories are that either he's testing his own Reaper of Bailey to see if a person will be killed even if they're not worthy of a capital crime, or to test us specifically to see if we can become a lawyer, or he deems worthy or whatever. Alright, now ladies and gentlemen of the jury, yes my lord, in concluding this trial I must ask one last time, your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foremost jury, I can assure you reached a fair and just conclusion. And yeah, there's been a lot of good prosecutors throughout this series. I mean, they're functionally the closest thing the game has to a boss fight, but they do it by finding holes in your statements and the witness testimony you have to break, so that's pretty interesting, especially since these games have a bit more of a heavy focus on hard evidence than, say, the Danganronpa games do. It also tends to jump straight into the events whenever a case starts. But at the same time, while the characters are all quirky and neat, it doesn't have too much long-term ones for anyone who's not a major character, so while we're definitely going to get a lot on Von Zykes and Ryanosuke here, we're not going to get nearly as much for the one-offs we're defending. Especially the poor guy from the last case we defended, because like I said, while we did successfully get him declared not guilty, he ended up dying anyways, in what was supposedly an accident, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting for the old bean while she's out of action, you know, but I know what her decision would be. Just mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Either way, it should be interesting, because very few prosecutors in this franchise have ever not had some sort of intricate, or at least interesting, backstory. Only a few of them have a completely, quote-unquote, normal one. In fact, I think only one or two do, now that I think through them real quickly off the top of my head. Alright, Mr. Foreman, not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
And there we have it. Unanimous not guilty and no arguments from the prosecution. Very well, Mr. Sosoke Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty. Yeah, that is a dang dapper outfit he's got, isn't it? Von Zykes, I mean. And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh, yes, Lord Sir? You are now a free man once more. It is my hope you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir, of course. My life. I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I am transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. The court is adjourned. '20th of February, sometime in the turn of the 19th century. Well, 1900, I mean, so that's the 20th century. 3:17 p.m. Oh, locum. Oh, wait, you mean me? Of course. Is there any other locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name's become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last, I'm free, I'm free. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation. Eddie Hardy happiness, hurrah! Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard to just say that, then? Locum, you did it. You saved me from the brink. Well, that happened. The poor one was in no way your fault, after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that. Lovely, loyal locum lawyer. Yes. I mean, as I said before, I've just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I saw them looking down at me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear. I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. Oh, but today, you gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And then I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of Bailey's roof. I bellowed, behold, the best barrister ever born. Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. Is that what's to become of all my hard work? An anecdote? There you are, dear fellows. Hey, it's Herlock Sholmes! Sadly, we're not going to see Dr. Wilson, because he was murdered in the first case of this game. But don't worry, his daughter, will take over his role for the remainder of the story. Because I guess it's not an Ace Attorney game unless it's a lolly partner. And yes, I am counting in Detective Gumshoe in Investigations 1. Sholmes. Yep. Rest assured, he's as eccentric as you'd expect him to be. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster's been averted, I'm glad to see. Oh. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It just finished. What? No, then my haste was in vain. It's Herlock Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume. The man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounter has taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Yeah, it's a bit complicated. The Scotland Yard just asked Sholmes to track down this person. Sholmes didn't think he was the murderer or anything, and that's why he helped us during the investigation phase. I imagine for the rest of the game, he's going to be doing just that as well, but since this is Case 4, the next one's Case 5, which should be interesting, although, technically, since this is the Ace Attorney Chronicles, this is both Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2. So yeah, even once we complete the final one for this game, there's going to be a second one right after, and I'm probably going to go straight into that. Or we'll see, or we'll see. I've got a few options for what I can do. Let's see her. Has she been taken to the hospital more urgently? I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. It is unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human, after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Ha ha! Priceless. Oh, I am so sorry, really, but... that was quite priceless. Or so Seki-san. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there was no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm, still cursed by the spirits, and, now by the Reaper. Right, Lords Van Zykes. I haven't forgot, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. You'll be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I'll protect you. Hiya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Oh, he's gonna go back home. Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. I figured he might do something like this, and this is also going to be an ideal test of the Reaper of Bailey's true power. If it can't touch him in Japan, that means either, or the fact this is not a capital crime saved him, or it can't reach all the way to Japan. But if it does, which is honestly what I think is going to end up happening, that it kills him even after he gets back in Japan, that raises quite a few interesting questions, because how could the Reaper Bailey's effects even go across the ocean like that? They even say at the start of the game it's a 50-day trip between Japan and Britain. Ooh. It's already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I've visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here in the city it's shaped. I've come to realize that it's my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. Oh, that's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all. The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen the work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki. Could be an interesting read. And what about Mrs. Otto and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustached compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London. And only now does it feel as though we finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in the hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget's exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room at the basement of that, place. But what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up with a floor and ceiling and walls. Right. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit. Oh yes, it tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's, an infallible wake-up call. We'll think about it, if that's alright. Basically, it's the cat that keeps waking him up each morning. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself, though it is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. That being Dr. Wilson, that is Dr. Watson's daughter. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of? Oh, it is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to take lodgings to the great detective's office. Attic. I'm too overcome for words. So, suggesting we look elsewhere is out of the question, then. Well, then it's settled. I also prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume, I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you, and yes. Wonderful. Then I shall go and complete the paperwork for a formal release. It shan't take long. Someone's happy. Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame we're going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I have little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home, 121B Baker Street. The 20th of February, 4:41 p.m., the attic room. So this used to be our new office, yes. Our office. I rather like the sound of that. Me too, it's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Ah, Mr. Sholmes, yes, thank you so much. Oh, nice to see him in his casual wear. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes, I simply adore it. Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry, it's nearly time for dinner. Really, as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives, we have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must simply let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel? To have your own office in the capital. It's very exciting, actually. I can't help but wondering what adventures await us. Those are precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. I'm sorry? London's a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've ever seen Sholmes without a smile on his face. Shadows, what do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke, but it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. Sounds good to save. The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Oh yeah, it's neat how Trials have, Ryan Uske as the background, and the investigation phases have the, have Sholmes as it. Alright, we're going to start episode 5 before we go too far. It's here. The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Hound of Baskervilles. A hound it was, but not such a hound. I'm going to be honest, the text here below the Hound of Baskervilles is extremely hard to read because of the font and size, but I think it says, a hound it was, but not such a hound as any mortal's ever seen. The eyes glow with a smoldering glare, the whole ox-sized body outlined in white hot flames. I imagine that's a oh yeah, I remember it now. It is a quote from the book in question. Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Episode 5. I don't know how many episodes are in each game for the record. I think it's about 5 each, but we'll find out rather quickly, I imagine.
It's coming! Sholmes's cry pierced through the thick wall of fog around us. Wisps of vapor flowed over the pistol as I cocked it, and I waited, breathlessly, in the stillness. The silence lasted for what seemed an eternity, until, at last, it appeared. From the shadows of the cloud, an enormous beast sprang out upon us. A hound it was, but not such a hound as any mortal has ever seen. Its eyes glowed with a smoldering glare. The whole of its ox-sized body was outlined in white-hot flames. Its rumbling pant and hideous howl, so terrified was I that I began to tremble with fear. "Look well, Wilson," Sholmes declared, gazing upon the mystical beast. "For this is the diabolical Hound of the Baskervilles."
Yeah, each one opens with a neat thing from Sherlock books. Our first 2 months in London passed by in a flash. In that disconcerting courtroom experience, we were first thrown the day we first arrived in the country, and so Psyche-san's terrible ordeal had followed closely behind. We had emerged victorious. However, there came an abrupt end to opportunities to appear in court. Which was hardly surprising, of course. Yeah, they did quote from the others, but if it wasn't as obvious, it would definitely become obvious once Hound of the Baskerville starts showing up. It's only one of the more popular ones, after all. Alright, so I was nothing more of an amateur, an unknown student from a faraway land. So life in our little office was very quiet. Okay, so what I'm getting from this is not too many people came to Ryan Uske to be his lawyer because despite his victories in court, they weren't set up for him before. And presumably it hasn't helped that Von Zykes probably hasn't been showing him up much either. Until it was shattered that day by a faithful telegram. The 15th of April, 9:13 a.m. Naruhodo's legal consultancy. Knock knock. Oh dang, that looks really nice. Simple, but effective. I was woken by the unreserved knocking at the door by a telegram boy, but after he'd gone, Susato's behavior became very obviously strange. Susato? Yes? It's time to leave court already? Let me see, what case is it today? I don't think I'm scheduled to defend anyone at the moment, am I? Oh, no, of course not. How silly of me. But I think Iris said she'd make us breakfast this morning. So shall we go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite? Yes. Iris makes the most delicious breakfast food. She does, doesn't she? And once our bellies are full, we can leave for court in fit form. Well, let me see. What case is it today? Here we go again. Something's definitely got our attention. Yeah, Suzuki-san, so, what was the telegram about? What was the telegram delivered this morning, I mean? Oh, a telegram. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get away with that. Well, I didn't think I would. Actually, don't give it a moment's thought. It's nothing. Nothing interesting. Boring, in fact. And it's just a boring old telegram. That's 3 times now she's tried and failed to convince me it was nothing. I promise I'll tell you about it at some point. I understand. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Soseki-san is dead, and that's what's throwing her off. I suppose Soseki-san would have arrived back in Japan by now, wouldn't he? Yes, I should think so. He left immediately after that terrible ordeal. Which would mean he should have completed the voyage already, or be just a few days away, at least. A fortnight ago, we had a very long telegram, can you remember? Complaining of seasickness. By and large, seems the voyage has been going well. Is something wrong, Naruto-san? I was just wondering, what might have become of Soseki had he stayed in London, that's all. You mean, as in regards to Lord Van Zykes, the Reaper? Yeah. I can't help but wondering if seasickness would have paled in significance in that case. What does they say, that no one who stands in the dock can be saved from the Reaper, right? Like the way that nightmarish trial ended on the very day we arrived in London. Even 2 months on, the cause of that dreadful fire is still a mystery. Yeah, but at least Soseki-san is safely out of the country now. Presumably that means the Curse of the Reaper can only take effect within the confines of the city of London, perhaps. Even if that's the case, it's a little comfort. I have a terrible sense of foreboding. If the legend of the Reaper is to be believed, it would mean he wields the sword of justice himself. Come to think of it, I wonder what he's been up to these past 2 months. Surely not wielding that sword against more acquitted defendants. No, I don't think so. Apparently Lord Van Zykes hasn't appeared in court once since our last encounter. Oh. Yeah, since Soseki-san's trial, he's withdrawn from judicial service again, it seems. Really? Just like before, when he wasn't seen in court at all for several years. So it's just been me who's had to face him with his recent spat of trials then. Yeah, that's why I'm wondering if, Yeah, that's why I was wondering if maybe he was trying to specifically draw us out to face us again with the last case. But I guess we won't find out till now. I wonder if luck doesn't come into it. I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, nothing, never mind. It's spring at last and the weather's warmer now, but I love the smell of the fire and the steam rising from the kettle. Oh, would you like some tea, Naruto? Thank you, but I'm alright for now. Green tea Don makes from time to time in Iris's unique herbal infusions. This place is paradise for a true tea lover. Green tea is such a wonderful accompaniment to British tea cakes, don't you think? So this is the tea set Susato brought with her from Japan. Let's hope she hasn't noticed me slipping sugar and milk in my cup when she makes it. It's just so bitter. Tea is a drink to be enjoyed, Naruto. You really don't have to force yourself to drink it, you know. I don't like to see you screw up your face, so... The spade's been here since we started renting the place. Oh, that's not a spade, Naruto. It's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. No, spades are for digging. That's for scooping loose material. It's a shovel. Oh crap, we're getting the ladder and step ladder argument again, aren't we? This must be the telegram. Let's see. Ah, no, you mustn't look at that. Not under any circumstances. Well, alright, I won't. I'm sorry, Naruto, but you can be very mischievous at times. But put the telegram away if you don't want people looking at it. We've only begun here in London for about 2 months, but my desk is starting to look a little messy already. We could tidy up once in a while. Susato-san, I always say, making a mess is a small sacrifice to pay for being able to further your studies. And the time spent tidying up is time you can't devote to the same cause. The time spent on ridiculous arguments is time that could be better spent on some simple housework. Well, she wins, but I'm supposed to be the lawyer here. Ah, the Daruma doll I brought with me from home. It's still only got one eye colored in. I decided to color the other eye once I won my first court case here in Britain, but... But you have one, haven't you? Twice, in fact. Because I feel as though I'm still lacking as a lawyer, I guess. Tell you what, why don't you color in the other eye once you think I'm a proper, fully fledged lawyer? you insist. We were rather lucky to find that old aquarium left behind here. The prawns we put in there are doing rather well, and the anemones too. It's a wonderful invention, isn't it? The sea, behind glass, inside your room. Another example of Great Britain's greatness. Having to clean out and change the water isn't so great, though, is it? Oh, it won't let me examine those, onions, potatoes. Do you know, I've never seen inside your room there, Susato. I've never even peeped inside. I should think so, too. A young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets, you know? Well, whatever you say, young maiden. Alright, I can go ahead and move here to the Sholmes Suite. The 15th of April, Sholmes' Suite. Morning, Runo. Morning, Susie. Good morning, Iris. Iris. What is it, Runo? What is that terrible noise? It sounds like a cat being strangled. Ah, yes, you noticed that. Noticed that, didn't you? Hurley isn't in the best form this morning, it seems. Oh, what's got him down? Hello. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. Good morning. Good morning to die, perhaps. Has something happened, Mr. Sholmes? You look miserable, and the way you were playing the violin before... My analytical mind is dead, music is dead, the world is dead. Damn this blanched existence. That's all it is, my dear fellow. Nothing of consequence. Wow. Given the last case of the first time we ever saw him frown, now he's really down in the dumps for some reason. I'm afraid I don't understand. Well, Iris, isn't it time we ate? Some dry toast and insipid coffee for me. If it's not too much trouble. Meow. Oh wait, it's a cat from the, Oh, look, it's Wagahai. Good morning, boy. Meow. That must be some sort of tiny door for cats to use. But how did it get here? All right, everyone, it's time for breakfast. It's time. Oh, wonderful. Let me help you, Iris. Would indeed be a fine day to die. I knew something looked different. Something's missing from Sholmes' desk. Well, we should probably examine the room a bit. Look at Mr. Sholmes' desk, it's completely clear. Isn't that enormous machine usually on it? We can never hope to understand what goes on in the great detective's mind, Mr. Naruhodo. Why, next we're invited, we may find he's vacated the entire suite. That's scarily plausible, actually. There's all sorts of on these shelves, chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high I can't help but feel the whole lot's gonna topple at any moment. Oh, it's such a charmingly untidy collection of paraphernalia, isn't it? It just looks messy to me, like my desk. But you, Mr. Naruhodo, must learn to tidy up after yourself. No favoritism there, then. The fire is burning comfortably in the grate again today. It's a very different feeling to a Japanese hibachi, somehow. Oh, look at that photographic print of a lady displayed on the mantelpiece. Could it be? Yes, it must be. It's that one. Oh, how exciting. Is that supposed to mean something to me? These are all mementos of Mr. Sholmes' past cases, I think. If he'd been involved with my case, I wonder if the beefsteak from La Carnival will be on display there. A mystery shoe, a curious hammer, dancing men, a bust of Napoleon. Ah, what an interesting collection. Looks like an untidy assortment of junk to me, rather than what's on my own sleeves. Well, you really ought to learn to keep your things in order, Mr. Naruhodo. No favoritism there at all. Looks like that huge metal chest is being used as a table for tea and coffee. Seems very sturdy, with an equally sturdy lock. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't go around opening things. I always have to keep an eye on you, don't I? You're very mischievous. Mischievous? How'd you come to that conclusion? Come to think of it, I haven't seen Iris do much writing recently. There's paper already set up in the typewriter. Look, as if she's about to start. That reminds me, when I mentioned that Iris was in the process of writing a full-fledged novel, Mr. Natsume was most impressed. Ah yeah, Mr. Natsume. That's what I'll be doing too once I'm back in Japan, he said through a tightly clenched fist and teeth. Iris's beautiful tea set is there on the table as usual. A couple of her special herbal blends always helps me relax when I'm feeling the strain. The English pastime is tea has many similarities with our own tea ceremony customs, don't you think? The idea of hospitality behind it, that's the essence of tea. This is where Iris notes down ideas, isn't it? Let's see, what does it say today? Ah, Buscombe Valley Mystery. Ooh, how intriguing. It must be the title of Iris's latest work. Oh my, what a wonderful, fantastic tale awaits us. Zato looks like an angel, but I bet she's dreaming of the most unsavory crime you could imagine. Yeah, that's the irony of detective and crime stuff. Strictly speaking, you do want the villain caught, but this also requires a pretty big crime to make it interesting enough to investigate after all. Then again, I guess even these games have occasionally done non-murders. I remember the second Phoenix Wright had a simple thievery case. They did eventually have a murder, but nonetheless, you did legitimately try a simple larceny case. Wanting to die. You seem to be very unhappy this morning, Mr. Sholmes. What's happened? It used to be the case that in my hands, this violin sung like the dawn chorus. Its melodious tones make flowers bloom. It would. But now the muses are unamused with me. The goddess of music has thrown me over. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? For hours I have bowed, for days even. Through the night I have endeavored to no avail. That sound, my tone, is lost. That brilliant, clear, unwavering tone. Gone forever, no more recitals of unbridled emotion. Well, you haven't been practicing much lately, have you, Hurley? Don't worry, I'm sure it'll come back to you in time. Heed my words, Mr. Naruhodo. Goddesses of the arts are fickle. One day they bestow genius upon a man. The next, they unmercifully withdraw it. Oh, dear. Why is this happening to me? They take a turn, I have to pull in with me. What's left, for pity's sake? What is left? Deduction, perhaps? Isn't that what you're known for? Mr. Sholmes, I don't like to pry, but your desk looks rather empty today. Well done, Mr. Zato. Your observational skills do you credit. Oh no, Mr. Sholmes, they pale insignificance compared to yours. You'd struggle not to notice, wouldn't you? You mean Hurley's great analytoscope? It's at Windy Banks now. I'm sorry, it's at Windy Bank? No, Windybanks, the pawnbrokery. Pawn? What? You mean you pawned that enormous machine of yours off? It has some considerable value, you see, quite undeservingly. Oh, but isn't it a very important machine for your work? I do wish you consulted us if your situation had become so desperate. I'd have gladly passed what little income I have to you. Dear madam, things are far from desperate. Oh, but the pawnbroker has your wonderful machine. How can it be anything but desperate? Making use of a pawnbroker is quite ordinary in London, I assure you. It is? Doesn't sound ordinary at all. It seems neither of you fully understand how pawnbroking works. What's to understand exactly? What did you mean when you said we didn't fully understand how pawnbroking works? To the people of London, pawnbrokeries are akin to banks. Banks? On Mondays, merchants relinquish their finest jackets and trappings to their pawnbrokers of choice. With the money they receive in return, they're able to trade happily through the week. And then on Saturdays, they go recover their things using the money they've earned. I had no idea. This has been a fascinating lesson for us. Everyone does, you see, especially people in inner London. And should they have the money to spare, they would purchase another fine jacket. Not to wear, obviously, but to pawn, should the need arise. Oh, how ingenious. So if we have something that's getting in the way, we leave it at Windy Banks, you see. Pawnbrokery could be thought of as an extremely secure vault. Who would have thought that even pawnbrokers are different here in Great Britain? Of course, you have to watch Hurley with it. Sometimes he pawns things he really shouldn't. Don't you, Hurley? What does it matter? The world's dead to me now. I guess we have to highlight her to talk to her. I guess her dress would have the biggest hitbox. Wagga hi. Mr. Natsume's cat seems to have settled into his new home then. Oh yes, I've become very attached to little Waggy. But it appears previous owner is completely forgotten to him. Cats are unfeeling creatures. Their mews are as empty as the hearts of the muses. Mr. Natsume had no intention of taking Waggy back to Japan. I wonder why he kept him in the first place. I expect he would have taken him if he could, but pets are strictly forbidden aboard steamships in our experience. And for good reason. Terrible things can happen if the rules of passage are not obeyed. Well, I don't mind, because Waggy's adorable. Yeah, he really is. Oh, yes, what about the door? I don't remember seeing that tiny thing in the main door before. Where did that come from? Oh, you notice. You're observant, Runo. Look, I used this. It's my latest invention. What's that? I call it the Cat Flip-O-Mat. Gosh, a machine for making doors just for cats? That's right, it can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. And it can do any door at all, no matter what it's made out of. It's very powerful, you see. Wait, even metal ones? Or vaults? That sounds like it could lead to some potential problems. I let the dog out manually here because I live next to a field, so I can't really have a doggy door installed. Since I'm close to a field, it just means it'll be an open way for the house for anything to get in, rodents and stuff. And I obviously would rather not have to deal with those if I can avoid it. Wouldn't it have been quicker to just make the cat flap itself rather than making a machine to make it? Well, yes, maybe, but now I can make cat flaps anywhere I like. Ooh, I think it's wonderful. You must make one for us in the door of our office upstairs, Iris. She really knows how to come up with unconventional inventions, this girl. Hee. Meow. Oh, what was that? Bug eye? Clatter, clatter. Speech. What was that? Oh no, Bug Eye's tangled up in your violin. I think he thinks it's a toy. No, what's he doing to it? Oh dear, Mr. Sholmes' precious violin. Hello, Infinity. You're just in time to see a cat destroy Sherlock Holmes' violin. Oh, why should I care? What? I shouldn't be surprised. If the cat's a more accomplished musician than I am, now. And this is pretty jarring because Sherlock Holmes has been nothing but smiles the entire game until right now, basically. Mr. Sholmes is in poor spirits, isn't he? Well, anyway, I'll put it back where it lives, shall I, Hurley? Out of the cat's reach, if possible. Maybe we should assess the damage. So this is the violin, is it? It's a Stradivarius, one of the finest violins in the world, made by a renowned Italian luthier, Antonio Stradivari. Holy crap, that thing looks heavily damaged. Oh, I see. It doesn't really look like anything special to me. As someone who used to play the violin, a well-made violin is actually extremely expensive and valuable. I happened upon it covered in dust, languishing in a pawn shop down a nondescript back alley. The broker had no idea of its value, so I was able to purchase it for a mere 55 shillings. How honorable of you. Until today, it's been my faithful companion in every Paganini-inspired performance I've made. I ask you, is there a reason to live in a world devoid of music? Tolerate this blanched existence? No. There is none. Mr. Sholmes. Well, my dear madam, what? My thoughts are preoccupied with fancies of the release from this dull routine. Well, it's about the violin. It looks, very different to normal, don't you think? What do you mean, Miss Susato? Oh, Susie's right. Yeah, the tone of the wood is completely different. And that's not all, I'm sure there was no crack there before. Wait, it's not even the right size, is it? Yeah, if a violin is cracked like that, that will make it impossible to play it properly, or at least not make the sound it should. Those fancy holes are not just for show. What's this? Or at least I think that's how it worked. It's been a long time. I played the violin for a good while when I was younger, but I guess I just fell out of passion for it, so unfortunately I haven't played in years. Possibly even decades by this point. No, only 1 decade. But a bit over that. I'm terribly sorry to have told you this, Mr. Sholmes, but that instrument isn't a violin at all. Wait, then what? I believe it's an entirely different instrument called a viola. What? How could Sherlock Holmes not notice the difference between a violin and a viola? You're right. You're quite right. This isn't my faithful Stradivarius. So what, pray, is this piece of stringed flotsam? Not your faithful performing partner, then. Oh, I see what must have happened. You do, Iris? This is just a simple mix-up. Sounds like Iris might be able to tell us exactly what's happened if we ask her. The mix-up. What do you mean by a mix-up, Iris? Well, you see, this violin... Sorry, this viola, I mean... was at Windibanks till last week. Ah, the pawnbrokers. Ah, Mr. Sholmes' beloved musical partner. There's a proverb from the East, which you are no doubt familiar with, my dear fellows. Always let a beloved child travel. Oh, yes, indeed. So you sent your beloved violin to the pawnbrokers and hoped that it would experience personal growth? Oh, what a wonderful idea. Last week, I pawned my Grand telescope in order to release my precious instruments. But it appears Mr. Winterbank mistakenly furnished me with this tawdry fiddle instead. Well, my ears cannot be deceived by the hollow timber of this piece of timber. No, but your every sense was deceived by the fact it just had strings. Oh, pshaw. Fine state of affairs this is. And why I always say, Mr. Naruhodo. Never trust a pawnbroker, they'll try to fiddle you every time. Oh, I get it, fiddle. But earlier told us you said you could think of pawnbroker as an extremely secure vault. Come, Mr. Naruhodo, dilly-dallying will get you nowhere. I'm sorry. Crunching your toast with that vacant aspect, pressing your coffee so obtusely. We're not a little bit embarrassed by our own conduct, considering the urgency with which we are faced? We must go to Mr. Windybank's brokery at once. Isn't that right, Mr. Sholmes? Precisely, Mr. Zato. Without a moment's delay. Oh, but I haven't finished my bacon and eggs. My dear fellow, surely you do not still intend to crunch your bacon with an increasingly vacant aspect, fresh your eggs more obtusely. Alright, say no more. Let's go then. Don't worry, Runo. I'll be happy to heat it up for you again later. Oh, thank you, Iris. As it happens, I'm rather curious to see what a British pawnbroker's looks like. So I can go to Baker Street first. I think if I try and examine something, it'll just tell me you need to get to the pawnbrokers. Look at all the different things in the window of the shop. Ah, that's Windybank's. Pawnbrokery. Looks much smarter than a pawnbroker's in Japan, doesn't it? Yes, you're right. I find pawn shops at home rather than inapproachable, personally. Reminds me of a tearfully parting with my favorite fountain pen. I felt so miserable. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, there's nothing else to click on. So, I'm accidentally clicked on that when I meant to click on the window above it. Nope, nothing. Oh wait, there's forgot this part. It's already been 2 months since we started taking lodgings here above Mr. Sholmes' office. I still can't quite believe it. I never expected things would turn out like this. Oh, I know. To actually be sharing accommodation with the world's greatest detective. If I find myself in a court of law, now I'll have not one regret. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'd be happy to defend you, of course. Should be getting to the case soon, I imagine. I wanted to get a head start on this before I start it next time, just because there's usually a lot of fluff to go through before the case begins. Well, not too much, but decent bit. So this is a British pawnbrokery. Oh my, there are all sorts of tools and contraptions here that I've never laid eyes on before. Ah, Susato-san, that spark of wonder in your eyes. You can't wait to scour the shelves, can you? I get the impression you enjoy places like this. Oh yes, I don't know why, but seeing such a lot of things I don't understand is a real thrill for me. My dear fellows, let us not forget why we're here. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. We are calling matters on business, not pleasure. And clear Mr. Sholmes means business too, judging by the spark of fury from his eyes. Mr. Windybank. Oh, Sholmes, sir, welcome back. Did you hear that brazen welcome? Well, yes, we are potential customers after all. We are disgruntled customers, Mr. Naruhodo. It's time to inform Mr. Windybank of our ire. Come, the fight is afoot. Ooh, scales. What are you doing, my dear fellows? We're not here to browse interesting curios. We have to come to teach this broker a lesson. Oh, but there are just so many fascinating items. Looks as though we'll have to talk to Mr. Windybank first before he can explore. Alright, the violin. Naturally, you recall this, which I retrieved from you some days ago. Yes? The second-rate fiddle is not my faithful instrument, Mr. Windybank. The color of the wood is different, there's holes in it, it's not even the same size. A wonderful summary of our observations, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so very sorry, sir. How utterly unforgivable of me. It's an excusable mistake for a pawnbroker. There's only one way to make amends. Wait, what? I shall have to... I think that's a little excessive, don't you think? I don't think that will be necessary, do you? If I just say this one thing before I, pop off. Yes. It was you, Sir Mr. Sholmes, who took it upon himself to remove the item the other day, I believe. I'm sorry. As I recall, I entered the storeroom to fetch your violin when I heard, "Ah, here it is." You did. And when I turned to convert you, you had taken the viola and left, sir. However, there can be no doubt that blame lies firmly on my own door for allowing you to leave. I shall not grumble or grouse any longer. Hey, no, stop, my dear fellow, the fault is mine! Phew. It would appear that the fight is over. I do humbly apologize, Mr. Windybank. Evidently, my questionable disposition precipitated this tragedy. Now, there's some $5 words right there. Well, you wouldn't be Mr. Herlock Sholmes with that questionable disposition, now would you? I do believe you may be right, sir. Ah ha ha ha. It's either laugh or cry, I suppose. You are, it must be said, one of our more challenging customers. I need to remind you of the peculiar collection of items you brought through my door in the past. Oh, peculiar items? In the extreme, ma'am. For example, the unpolished manuscript of an eponymous work, the novels of Herlock Sholmes, or someone. Oh my, a new fully-fledged novel? And unpublished? A story I've yet to read, you mean? Ah, forgive me. Wait, no, before you do that, you must tell me more. Pawnbrokery. Well, let's go with the pawnbrokery first. I wonder, could I ask you something? Ah, gentleman from the East, I see. That's that stable suit. I suppose I could offer you sixpence for it. Without wishing to offend, the tone is somewhat dull. I'm sorry. Ah, but very splendid attire, man. 5, no less. 5 guineas, no less. The colors are exquisite. The design exotic. Eastern artistry at its finest. Oh my, 5, you say? How interesting. Why do I feel as though I've suffered some sort of defeat here? Actually, I was hoping to ask you about your business. I've heard it said pawnbrokeries are used rather like banks here in London. Yes, sir, indeed. Many of my customers utilize the establishment as you describe. I appraise their items, offer them proportionate loan, and 2 months of secure storage. If in that time they repay the original sum to me, plus the agreed interest, their items are happily returned. What happens if they don't pay you the money? Then the items are offered for sale in my shop. As you can see, the shelves behind me. Oh, so you never sell items for the 2 months have passed, then? That's right, ma'am, that is right. Which means some considerable responsibility rests on my shoulders. Should a customer's precious belongings be lost, the only recompensance for me is to end it all. The very idea, Mr. Windybank, is absurdity. One should never take one's demise so casually, says the man who was telling us it was all a good day to die early this morning. Alright, see you later, Infinity. I'm probably gonna finish up the stream in a bit as soon as I finish up this scene. Oh, and let's not forget that I've already helped you take measures to ensure such a tragedy never occurs. Oh, what kind of measures? I engineered a simple device which Mr. Windybank installed here at his shop. I call it the Red-Handed Recorder. Is that not so, Mr. Windybank? Ah, what was that deep sigh about? Well, first of all, let's go with the unpublished story. I must know more. Tell me everything. Wow, Susato sounds really fired up now. Is there really an unpublished story under this very roof? Well, one day the gentleman here brought an old metal chest, you see. I should like to entrust this to your care for a while, Mr. Windybank. For a chest like that, 1 shilling, sir, not a farthing more. It houses something of great value indeed, the latest manuscript, recounting the adventures of one Mr. Herlock Sholmes. I beg your pardon, a manuscript? You wish to deposit a manuscript? Indeed I do, for I'm confident it'll be quite safe here. And that was that. As such, Mr. Sholmes' latest tale of otherworldly mystery lies dormant in my storeroom. Oops, I accidentally bumped the mic there, sorry about that. Mr. Sholmes, is that really true? Do I sense that someone doesn't want to talk about this? I'll continue to pay your fee, do I not? Then kindly continue to store my belongings securely. Of course, sir, of course. They're safe and sound with me, I assure you, on my life. This is all very strange. Now the red-handed recorder. What on earth is a red-handed recorder? Use your eyes, my dear fellow. There are two just below the ceiling. I can see what appears to be a camera attached to some sort of timing device. Very astute. It is indeed a camera furnished with some 100 pieces of celluloid film, and every 30 minutes precisely, the camera automatically records the appearance of a shop. Here, I have an example I can show you. So this is basically an ancient security camera. Print from the camera set to record the activity at the shop counter. I developed a special type of film so sensitive it produces a crystal clear image even in darkness. Really, that's extraordinary. Yeah, you can clearly see the counter and the door behind it. Look. So you see, were someone to enter the premises with ill intent, his identity would be somehow exposed. Oh, but did you not say the photographic prints were taken at 30-minute intervals? Indeed, as you say, my dear madam. Then what if the incident were to occur at the in-between times? One could only say that would be a cruel twist of fate. I must confess your devices have been giving me some strange cause for distress as of late. I beg your pardon, Mr. Windybank. Surely they are anything but distressing. Reassuring is the right word. It's at the cost of films, sir. You most graciously placed not one but two in my shop after all, which means I must pay for near 100 utterly useless prints each day. I'm afraid the cost of film will break me before I'm very much older. Nevertheless, a small price to pay to ensure the safety of my preferred pawnbrokery, isn't it not? My dear fellows, we are on the verge of an age where safety and security come at a price. Oh, heaven help us. Now then, Mr. Sholmes, allow me to return your precious violin. Ah, the very thing. Thank you, Mr. Windybank. Perhaps this might mark the end of that peculiar items you try to pop, huh? Because if anything were to happen to one of them, this would be the only answer. I really think I ought to stop waving that gun around. Someone could get hurt. Fear not. I'm sorry. I only loaded a single bullet, so no one but myself could possibly be harmed. That's not what I meant. Good day to you, then, Mr. Windybank. It's been a pleasure as always, Mr. Sholmes. So, Mr. Naruhodo, we can explore at last. The Scales of Justice. There seems to be a little door hidden behind that current. Oh, it's not letting me look at the scales, the door. Oh, that leads to the storage room where Mr. Windybank keeps articles that are currently in pawn. I see. There's nothing of particular interest inside. Certainly wouldn't recommend any larcenous activity. Recommend it or not, it's not something I tend to do. There's but one key, and Mr. Windybank keeps it in his pocket at all times. Before he sleeps, before he places on a small pot, which he slides under his pillow. How on earth did you know that, Mr. Sholmes? I'm a detective, sir. It's my business to know what others do not. I'm frequently assailed by information I neither care for nor wish to retain. Mr. Sholmes, you're a wonder. And the prime suspect of this pawnbrokery is ever burgled. Ooh, look at this. What could this lovely, big, shiny box be? That, my dear madam, is a music box. Surely you have such things in your own country. Oh my, yes, but I've certainly never seen one so large before. Shall we listen a while? That's not bad, actually. Ah, what sublime sound. It's like the music of angels. I've never heard anything like that before in my life. This particular specimen's of the larger variety, commonly found in public houses and restaurants. There's a metal disc inside which notes the players are recorded. Simply by replacing one disc with another, any music you care to imagine can be played. My goodness, what a simply delightful machine! Indeed, though the popularity has waned recently with the development of the gramophone, of course. Science and technology advances at such an overwhelming pace. Oh, there's something here I can click on, though. What an assortment of things there are on these shelves here. Crockery, footwear, clocks, and watches. Almost anything you care to imagine. Those are forfeited items offered for sale by the pawnbroker. What does that really mean, though? When you pawn, or colloquially pop an item, the broker loans you money against its worth. He stores the item for an agreed period of time, after which the loan must be repaid. If not, he is free to display it in his shop for sale, and at a price of his choosing. Oh, now that you explained it, I'm noticing little price tags on everything. Of course, simply by agreeing the paid interest on the loan, one can extend the period of safekeeping. So you may pawn that black garb of yours without fear, my dear fellow. My treasured university uniform? Never. It embodies my student spirit. What's this? Look at the enormous ledger on the counter there. Mr. Windybag is, if nothing else, particular about recording the items he accepts. He'd have to be, otherwise he'd get himself in all sorts of trouble, which might explain the thing that catches my eye far more than the ledger. This revolver here. Do not entertain even a single thought of pilfering an article herein, my dear fellow. I assure you, Mr. Windibank would not hesitate to draw that weapon with a speed belaying his portly size. Oh, you don't mean he'd... Oh, wow, his own? Indeed, in recompense for a blunder. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to blow the other person, not yourself, with one of those. But in any case, of course we never do such a thing. How could you even suggest it? What's this? And what do you suppose this rather enormous machine does? It seems to have two little windows for looking through. Allow me to enlighten you, my dear fellows. What you're looking at is a stereoscope. A stereo... Fascinating. Aptly named, I assure you. Look through the eyepieces and see for yourself. Oh, I should be delighted to. Excuse me a moment while I just have a look. Just before you do, there is something I should point out. My dear fellows, in order to see the image properly, stereoscopically, as it were, you need to be cross-eyed. However, if that's beyond you, it is of little consequence today. Alright, I'm gonna try it. Ah, Mr. Naruhodo, you must see at once. Alright, cross-eyed, like I'm trying to look at my own nose. What the... I don't believe it. It's just a photographic print, but it seems like you'd reach out and touch it. Yes, the sense of depth is startling, is it not? Stereoscopes are one of London's many fads. They're often found in little stalls in the park. People queue for hours to see them. Why are people meddling with such black magic? It's no magic, my dear madam. It is, well... far too complicated to explain at present. We shall save this lesson for another day. Oh. I mean, is it that hard to explain that's just an optical illusion? April 15th. That's not a calendar you could easily miss, is it? 15th of April, today's date. Yes, that's not for sale, I must point out. It is an Eastern-style page-day calendar. Every night at midnight, I tear off the front page to reveal the following day's date. The perfect calendar for a tearaway fellow such as yourself, Mr. Windybank. And who was it that walked out of here with the wrong violin before? Well, when the agreed storage period's passed without repayment, articles are forfeited, you see. So I have to keep a close eye on the date. It's something of a pawnbroker's obsession, you might say. Oh yes, I can see you're very dedicated to your job. Oh, look at this. Whatever could it be used for? I have no idea. Ah. There's a small cache here, just look. We're going to open it, aren't we? Oh my, that's amazing. Some sort of spring-loaded mechanism. Which we'll never manage to put back in the way it was before. What are you two doing? Us? Nothing, no, nothing at all. Whatever this device is, it seems to have a pair of little windows to look through. I feel as though I've seen something rather similar to this elsewhere. Well, only tuppence for that, I barely know it. This article's barely with a penny, miss. I can offer more. Sounds like there's an argument brewing over by the counter. Come on, that can't be right. Haven't you ever paid a proper butcher's head? I've seen all I could see. You need to see, young girl. Oh, it's that, wait, don't we know? I'm sure I recognize her. Oh yes, it's the young lady at Mr. McGilded's trial 2 months ago. Her name is Gina Lestrade, my lord. The Chancellor earns her crust among large crowd, relieving people of their purses, commonly called a pickpocket. Oh, Gordon Bennett, you lot. Shame Gordon Ramsay hasn't been born yet, or she could have quoted him. Hello, Miss Lestrade, I hope you've been well. Hey, what, you remember me then, do ya? Well, I remember being completely surrounded by smoke, that's for sure. So what you doing here? What you doing here? Down and out like the rest of us, nothing to eat, coming to pop that black weasel coat, have ya? What is about this black uniform that makes everyone comment on it? Ah, good day, unless I'm much mistaken. You would be the young pickpocket who stole our experimental smoke grenade launcher. Ah, Mr. Shorms! So, you have something of value to pawn, do you? Let me see the article and I shall negotiate with Mr. Windibank on your behalf. Poor the other one, I don't need help from some duck up a D. Get out of my business, go on, I'll make trouble for you. Well, as you wish, Miss Lestrade. I'll happily remove myself from your presence. He's really done it. He's gone. I'm sorry, but as I said, there really is no room for negotiation here. What's that thing he has in his hand? Some kind of metal disc? And you, go on, leave me alone. Oh, Miss Lestrade, just pretend we aren't here. We shan't be affected in the slightest. Mrs. Otto can really stand her ground when she wants to. Oh, whatever. Pawnbroker's customer. Somehow I didn't think you were the sort of person who'd use a pawnbroker, Mr. Lestrade. Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. That's a problem, is it? No, not at all. Just, Oh, I know what you're thinking. You probably don't even belong to... Doesn't belong to her. Probably got in a dive, didn't she? Yeah, I can see it all over your shitty chase. Well, I might have been thinking something along those lines. You're not going to deny it, Mr. Naruhodo? Alright then, I'm just going to come out and ask you straight. Did you pawn things you steal from other people? Well, I don't know how best to answer that, really. I suppose sometimes. Well, you're not going to deny it either, Mr. Lestrade. Not this time, alright, I swear. That thing belongs to me. It's the disc Mr. Windibank is holding. Perhaps we should see what he has to say about all this. Gina Lestrade. She's been here before, of course, the little tattered Emmeline. I see. I brought some dubious article order with her every single time, I might add. Dubious? What are you trying to say? I'm an honest customer, mate. So is there something dubious about the disc she brought in today? Well, if only it were that simple. What do you mean? What she actually brought in was a storage ticket. Storage ticket? So she's actually come to redeem an article from you today, is that right? Yeah, that's right, girl like me has lots of stuff what needs stored. Okay, yeah, that's definitely dubious. The article in question would have been forfeited at midnight tonight, but as she gave me the ticket for it and repaid both the loan and the interest, I was obliged to return the article to her. But what was the article? You tell us, Mr. Windibank. Full scamp is wearing it, ma'am. It's the overcoat she redeemed. What's wrong with that? If it's not, I mean, it's mine, so of course it does. So, what about the disc then? How does that come into all this? The disc is, something else. new article to pawn if the girl and I can agree on a price. Mr. Windibank, what exactly is this metal disc Miss Lestrade has brought in? It seems to have hundreds of tiny little bumps on its surface. Oh, this music disc. This is a music disc, you see, for inside of a music box. Isn't it a music box? Boy, you don't even know what a music box is? Jeez, you starting not onto savvy, eh? I know what a music box is, I've just never seen one of these discs before. Small protrusions on the disc encode a tune to be played on the music box. You simply insert the disc and set the machine going and the beautiful music plays. It's so incredible. Tell us what tune is on this disc. Well, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you that. There's so many different types of music box, you see. British-made, German, Swiss. I have no way of knowing which particular machine this disc was made for. Okay, that would explain it. And that's it in a nutshell. I wouldn't have any customer for an item like this, even if the young lady forfeited it. Really, I'm already offering more than I should at a penny. That's a pack of lies. He told me. He said it was, well, He who? Never you mind. It did say it right, that's all. That disc's worth good money. I know it is. Well, then you'll have to try your luck at another pawnbroker's, won't you? Ah. I'm confused. I thought you said Miss Lestrade brought in a storage ticket today. It's really quite simple. Yes, the child brought me a storage ticket and the money owed on it, as you say. With this heavy black coat, which you returned to her care, as I understand it. That's right, yes, and rather unsurprisingly, as soon as the little gamuffin put the thing on, she went rifling through the pockets. Oh, you mean... What? Don't you know it's rude to stare at a lady? Oh, I see. So it came from the pockets of an overcoat, did it? If you mean this disc, then yes, exactly, ma'am. And she immediately tried to pawn it, for quite a high price as well. This is all rather suspicious, I'd think. Oh, give it up and try to pawn something like anyone else would. Mr. Lestrade, may I ask you who deposited the overcoat here in the first place? Well, me. It doesn't appear to be your size. Me old man's, ain't it? Isn't it, Mr. Lestrade? Yeah, this is definitely all rather suspicious. Out of my way, please. Who's this picture postcard English gentleman? Good day to you, ladies, gentlemen. Oh, what's your problem, eh? There's no problem as long as you remove yourself. I have a matter to discuss with the proprietor. And if you intend to make a problem of it, I shall see you outside, little girl. For that height you deserve. Okay, and obvious, I ain't done talking with him yet. You think you're such a gentleman, you should know to wait in line. Well, you are an impudent little brat on today, aren't you? As well as a pickpocket. Who are you? How do you know who I am? The question is, how do you not know who I am? You haven't the courtesy to remember the faces of your victims, it seems. What? You mean from you? Broker. Yes, sir? I do believe this filthy pocket thief just redeemed an article from you, no? Yes, the article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once. Oh my. No, that's a lie. What are you trying to pull? Give me back my overcoat. And needless to say, any music box discs as well. No, you can't have it. You just can't. It's my old man's, what it was. Now it's mine. Goodness, Mr. Naruhodo. This is a very awkward situation. Yeah, I think perhaps we should hear both sides of the story in a little more detail. Yeah, things are about to heat up right now, and I think after 3 hours I should probably take a little break. Well, rather, I'm gonna have to call it for the night. So I'm gonna go ahead and save right here. Yeah, this one's... Alright, since this is episode 5, this is definitely going to be a pretty long one, so we'll be picking this up next time. Alright, thank you for watching, hope you had a good time. My About page has a link to my YouTube account for my older VODs that I'm still currently uploading, or if you want some of my newer ones, I save them for as long as Twitch allows. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.